Okay. All right, that was an easy fix. Okay, Shabbat Shalom. I did all that talking with the microphone muted.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. That Chris.
Yes.
Shalom, Chris.
¿Cómo está mi amigos?
Hey, bring me something back, Chris. Bring me something back.
No habla inglés. ¿Tú hablas español?
Okay.
Okay. All right. I'm glad we got that squared away early. I'd have went here and talked the whole way with no sound on it.
And then you had to repeat, huh?
Okay, so as I was saying, we are going to look at the end of Deuteronomy 31. We're going to look at Deuteronomy 32, also the Song of Moses, and we're going to look a little closely in we find inside of the Song of Moses. Talk about when we get to it, but for now, we're going to go over and finish up chapter 31 because there was a couple things in there that I wanted to bring out. Let me pull the verses up here. Okay, if we can read Deuteronomy 31:14 through 22.
And Yah said to Moshe, see, the days have drawn near for you to die. Call Yehoshua and present yourselves in a tent of appointment so that I command him. And Moshe and Yehoshua went and presented themselves in the tent of appointment. And Yah appeared at the tent in a column of a cloud. And the column of a cloud stood above the door of the tent. And Yah said to Moshe, see, you are about to sleep with your fathers, and this people shall rise and whore after the mighty ones of the strangers of the land, into the midst of which they shall enter, and forsake me, and break my covenant, which I have made with them. Then my displeasure shall burn against them in that day, and I shall forsake them and hide my face from them, and they shall be consumed. And many evils and distresses shall come upon them. And it shall be said in that day, is it not because our Elohim is not in the midst that these evils have come upon us? And I shall certainly have my face in that day, because of all the evil which they have done. For they shall turn to other mighty ones. And now write down this song for yourselves and teach it to your children of Israel. Put it in their mouths, so that this song is to me for a witness against the children of Israel. And I shall bring them to the land flowing with milk and honey, of which I swore to their fathers, and they shall eat and be satisfied and be fat. Then they shall turn to other mighty ones, and they shall serve them, and scorn me, and break my covenant. And it shall be, when many evils and distress comes upon them, that this song shall answer before them as a witness. For it is not to be forgotten in the mouths of their seed. For I know their thoughts, which they are forming today, even before I bring them to the land of which I swore to give them. And Moshe wrote this song the same day and taught it to the children of Israel.
What'd I say, 22? Okay, good. Okay, so, all right, so kind of just going backwards, he goes into this, the Song of Moses, which we'll look at in the next chapter, how the people, he's telling Moshe how the people are going to go astray, and this song is almost acts as a testimony, a remedy to the situation, something that the children of Israel are supposed to learn this song and know the words of it and the truths and things that it contains. So we'll look at the Song of Moses, but I wanted to look at a couple things that we see up here. If we go back up, where it begins, because I just kind of wanted to think about, what Moshe here is having to go through, because we see in verse 14, see, the days have drawn near for you to die. So the Most High is telling Moses that he's going to go, kind of like what happened with Aaron, where he basically told Aaron, go over there and die. So he's basically telling Moshe the same thing as they reach the point where they're able to actually look and see the land, but he can't go in. Your time's up. You're going to die now. Get Yehoshua, the son of Nun, who we call Joshua. Get him all ready to go. He's going to take the people into the land. But the thing that I was thinking about was the fact that, think about the fact that Moses was the leader, essentially the king of Israel at this time. He was the one who everyone looked to for leadership. He basically held the responsibility of leading Israel. And then the Most High at this time is saying, okay, your leadership role is over. Pass it on. Oh, and by the way, the people they're gonna go astray.
Serving other gods, and they're gonna forsake me and break the covenant.
Yeah,
they're about to suffer. They're gonna cry out to me.
Yeah,
turn his face away.
But so what I'm saying is that think about the whatever responsibility that you have, whatever thing that you.
Check your sound, huh?
No, well, can you hear me, Chris? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, the sound was off. Maybe that was an old thing. They can hear me now. Think about whatever it is that you preside over, and think about how it will feel to pass that on to somebody else. Whatever it is that you take care of, and you got to pass that thing on to somebody else. You trust the other person, but whatever that thing is, you would probably want for that thing to kind of succeed and move forward in a positive direction. The thought of giving it to a trustworthy person is settling, because you know that trustworthy person is going to keep things going the way they're supposed to go. But Moshe is learning here, as he's passing the torch, that it's not gonna go good. Everything's not gonna be okay. In fact, it's gonna be terrible. It's gonna be worse probably than you could imagine. And there's nothing that can be done about it. There's nothing that he can do. So it caused me to think about it caused me to think about faith, really. It caused me to think about the fact that, we have to get to the place where we trust in the Almighty, and get ourselves out of the equation. Because when it didn't matter what Moses was physically did at this point. Or Yehoshua, for that matter. that he told them what was going to be, and there was just nothing that could be done about it. But I'm saying the thing that we get from that is the idea is that we have to be able to get to the place where we take ourselves back and let the Most High be the one that leads and guides things, and know that you know, the ship at the end of the day really is steered by the Almighty. And we see here that, you know,
so is it no matter what, just like even with him passing something on like you just used, and knowing that it's not going go right and this and that, but still having the faith to know at the end of the day that it's going to be all right because it's still controlled by the Most High. Is that where? Is that
you know, because we want to fix things. You know, we want to get in there and we want to just make everything right. And we want to sit up with our understanding and we want to make sure that all of our things are in a row. But here we see that the calamity is coming and there's nothing that can be done about it.
Basically, are you saying like we want to, it's just human nature, or just when you got loved ones, you want all of your loved ones to be on the same accord and be that like that, but it's because that's how with Moses, like I'm pretty sure he got family members at this point that he don't want to be see suffering and stuff like that, but it's out of his control.
You could look at it like that. If you think about your loved ones,
right? I'm thinking,
and you want to sit up here and make sure that your people know. Right. My people got to know the truth. I got to sit up here and tell them all of these things, and I got to make sure that they hearing and understanding what it is that I'm saying. Right. But you know, all you could do is tell people something. You can't make them do nothing. All you could do is just tell them.
That's what I was getting.
You can't
like this. He got the
right.
That's it. Like he's one of like. So of course you want all of you. I know I don't want things to go bad for nobody or nobody, but at the end of the day, like
it's probably going to go bad.
It's going to go. It's written that way.
Yeah.
The number's going to. It's not going. It's few that's going to even get called.
But yet and still, we still have to move forward.
Right.
We still have to move forward. Like Moses, in spite of the fact that, like, at the end of the day, this is the Most High telling Moses that he needs to go and not go over there. But well, he does plead with the Most High, to see that he can go over. But once he gets that final no,
right,
it's done at that point. But at the end of the day, he gives everything over the way that the Most High is wanting for him to do. And what I'm saying that we should see from this is the fact that we have to, we can only do what we can do. At some point, we have to be able to turn things over to the Almighty and allow for His will to be done. We want to sit up here and have this list of how we think things are supposed to be and put these things all in these little particular places and categories and all of this. But the Most High's plan is a lot of times different from how our plan is. So I just thought it was interesting, the thing that Moses had to deal with here at the end of his life, not only saying, well, your time on this earth has come to an end, but this job that you've been doing, these 40 years in the wilderness, it's been passed on and the people are going to go astray.
Yeah, they ain't going.
No.
It just seemed like it's a lot to take on all at once right there.
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think Moses was shocked? Because I don't think he would be shocked because
shocked about what?
About what the Most High just kind of like threw in there, like, oh, by the way, your people are going to go astray. I don't think he was shocked because he was used to it. He was used to them, you know what I mean, acting up.
Well, the thing that I can't say that I know that he was shocked, but I would like to think that, because again, when they was in the wilderness, right, it was that older generation was dying off. And then so you going into the land with this younger generation, who you would think wouldn't follow in the footsteps of their parents that all died in the wilderness, right?
I don't think that he was shocked in regards to the aspect of that part either, because like right now we're in Leviticus right now at home, and they each time since they left Egypt, from the time they left Egypt to where I'm at right now I'm in Leviticus chapter 21. They have been disappointed from day one since they got out of Egypt. Yeah. So that I'm pretty sure that some of them got old. Some of them they keep forgetting, right? Like the way I'm interpreting, they keep forgetting that their God is top God of all the other gods that you see. He just shut down a whole nation in the sea. How are y'all forgetting that? How are y'all getting goats?
They definitely
worship. So I honestly think that he probably wasn't surprised at that. I think the only big thing is just to know, like, wow, I'm paying this to this person I think is going to uphold it, but he ain't even will be able to handle them.
Yeah,
I think that would be the only surprise, because the Israelites, just me personally, as when I be like rating, I be pulling my hair out, rating like, wow, because I was sick of myself when I got to this point. But like, just to even since they got out of Egypt, they're a mess. And this is I'm not even in Deuteronomy yet, but they're since Exodus, since they left Egypt, it has been non-stop. Yeah, back to this. It's pretty back bad. To this. Now he's talking about skin disease and being unclean. Like y'all keep doing stuff. You bringing Egyptian traits. You're picking up Canaanite traits. Like you're just all over the place. Like he got to lay down rules and tell y'all not to sleep with animals. Where y'all getting this from? Right. So honestly, I think that he probably is not surprised.
No, I don't think he's surprised.
Well, I don't think that I'm saying that he's surprised. I'm thinking about what we can gain from looking at what he had to deal with, and the weight of the situation, and how we should, what we can gain from looking at, not so much that he necessarily was shocked, because as you say, this was his reality, these 40 years of dealing with these people. Yeah. But I'm saying when we look at what was on his plate at this time, I'm just saying what we can gain from this is seeing that, despite of the fact of whatever it is that we have to deal with in our situation, we have to, just like Moshe did, get to the place where, the thing that we want to, we have to be in tune with what the Father's doing and move accordingly, right? Because Moshe could have reacted another way, but he just went in and just did whatever it was, in spite of the fact of this heavy thing that he just was put on his plate. So I'm saying there's something for us to learn here, not necessarily that Moses was shocked about it, but there's the fact that, when we look at, what's going on, there's something for us to learn, and that's for us to be able to walk in faith.
You know what? I'm going to touch base on that, because I do agree with that. Because since I've been in my awakening, seriously, walking in truth, and been sharing the truth with a lot of people, I see a lot of them accepting it, but not really following it. So I always think about what Moses went through, what the apostles went through, what Paul went through, and sharing this word, because some accept and some don't. Some act like they want to accept, but they don't act wholeheartedly, and then they ask the same questions over and over. I'm not concerned with answering questions, but what I'd be concerned with is the actions of them applying to what they already know. I mean, if you notice, but I wouldn't be surprised either, reading it from the documents in the scripture, how many times Israel had turned around and forgot this and forgot that. I've even did it in my own past. Right. I forget the blessings where y'all saved me from meeting my demise or bless me with this and bless me with that. The awe moment faded. In the moments, I was happy and praising and all that. But eventually down the line, somewhere I forgot and went back into the BS, you know? And then I had to be corrected and reminded myself, did you know y'all did this for you? Did you know that you wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for him? I had to come to grips with that, you know? So that's why I'm so compassionate and patient with other people, because of my process, because of the process of the Israelites, because of the whole ordeal of the process. It's not going to happen overnight. But however, eventually when someone comes to the fork in the road, they got to choose the right way, you know, and how they're going to apply it to their life. So yeah, the scriptures, all through the scriptures, we can apply everything to today and how we carry ourselves.
Right. So when you say like walking in faith with it, as far as with Moses, so I want to just make sure I'm interpreting it right. Would it be more so like him just having to just let God have his, like, let it be his will and his way in regards to how things are going to be? That's why I use a scenario of, even though, like, that's as far as I'm pretty sure he had loved ones and family of that was being left behind, and just to know that they're about to have a hard life. That's hard on a human.
Yeah.
I know it will be hard on me.
Right.
Knowing, hey, Mo, you gotta go. Your daughter, she's about to be. I wouldn't like to hear that.
Right.
I wouldn't. So I'm just looking at it as like just trusting in his decision and what he's going to have be done to. And so be it, and just let go. And that's hard as a human being.
Right.
Well, we have emotions, we have hearts.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I'm looking at the faith that you're saying. So what you're saying, like, I'm right. That way.
That's what I'm saying. So all I'm saying is that we in this life, there's gonna be some pills that we're gonna receive straight from the Almighty.
Yeah, that's true.
And you gotta just swallow the pill that he's giving you, right? Because I'm saying this one here, Moses. This is a big thing that's going on. You're gonna die. These people that you've been leading, they going astray.
People about to come against them. They about to be
calling
to me. I'm gonna turn my back. So it's like, now I know you're not gonna have mercy with them. They gotta know this song so they can know as a reference. This is why what. Like, so yeah.
So I'm not necessarily speaking to his reaction. I'm saying put yourself in that situation, and what would you do? What would your reaction be? And I'm saying that, you know, in this life, you know, we have these situations where, you know, the Most High is giving you these situations, and now you gotta deal with it.
And it might be a way that he's telling you to do. That's a hard decision, but you gotta have the faith and trust in
him. Right. But it's not as if he's just bringing the people into this calamity and just like, okay, here you go, right? Because it says down in, let's see, 21, and it shall be when many evils and distresses come upon them, that this song, the song of Moses that they're getting ready say in the next chapter, shall answer before them as a witness. For it is not to be forgotten in the mouths of their seed, for I know their thoughts which they are forming today, even before I bring them into the land which I swear to give them. Right, so the Most High knows what the kind of the angst of the people as they're getting ready to go into this unknown territory. But don't worry, I'm giving you these words to help you on the way. Because you brought up a good point, how, you know, as you going through the scriptures, you see that the people are continually forgetting this thing that literally just happened.
No, and I had to apply it to my daughter and to myself when I'm like, I was like trouble. Like, you know what? I want to be mad at them, but I know it is hard. That was one of my battles, trying to be like everybody else. Like they're picking up habits, and he keep telling them like, don't do what they did. Like don't pick up their traits. Don't. I hated them. He said I hated them. I drew them out the land. So it's like, and they continuously keep forgetting. Like he'll come to them and they'll, but then they'll resort right back to. So here he coming with this. Like right now we're at the part where he just came with uncleanness of skins and stuff like that. That's all resulting from, sin or whatever you're doing that's causing you to have these little malfunctions in your skin now or mold in your house. But it's just they keep forgetting. Well,
when you look at what
is this where Moses is being told when what's gonna happen to him?
Yeah.
That's what we're on.
So when we look back, it's not necessarily that when you're going through the law that every time that the commandments is going out, that it's kind of like countering the actions that they're currently doing. With the law being given, there is just like how when we come into Shabbat Shalom, just like when we're coming into the truth, there's kind of like an unlearning that has to be done, right? So with the Most High giving Moses the Torah to give to the people, as they're as you're going through, you're seeing he's going through all of these laws, statutes, and commands where he's given the boundaries and the guidelines for Israel, the thing that sets Israel apart, because they just came from these hundreds of years of being with these other nations, and there's all of these things that need to be unlearned. And when we look at I probably said this before, we look at Paul when he talks about the Torah as being a schoolmaster. It's just that is leading us away from something. The Torah is leading us away from something, and is leading us towards something. It's leading us away from these other nations, and it's leading us towards the Almighty. So there's a distinction that's made between all of the nations and all these people in Israel. And that's what we see. But
accepting the sovereignty.
Say that again.
I think that Moses is learning that he just has to accept sovereignty.
Well, yeah.
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 I mean, you can't.
That's a huge lesson right there. Everyone needs to know that.
I mean, I feel like I had to learn that this week, and how the miscarriage and everything. That sometimes you gotta accept the sovereignty of God, and then sometimes, like with Moses, I don't know. I mean, we know that it says that the reason that he wasn't going into the land was because he didn't. What was the word? He didn't honor or he didn't give respect to Yah in front of the people.
Yeah.
But the people didn't really know. It was more so his relationship with the Most High. The people didn't know that he was told not to hit the rock.
Yeah, they didn't know. Just him and Aaron knew.
Only him and Aaron knew. So it wasn't necessarily even that the people had this, bad impression or whatever, but it was his relationship with the Most High. So,
I think I can't remember exactly what he said. I have to double check what he said whenever he did it.
Man, them people got on his nerves and made him hit the rock twice.
Yeah, I know they get on my nerves.
I'm hunting in Leviticus. I'm like, I don't know. Now, real fast,
I'm not
like
sure how
what you're saying, like in sovereignty, like, okay, so I'm gonna use a different scenario. So, like, when my daughter's father was murdered, she was a baby, she was 1.
Wow.
And even though I knew his lifestyle, I felt for her because I have my memories and everybody else did, but she won't. But accepting this decision at the end of the day, because the lifestyle that he lived, this is what it is, and this is what questioning and stuff like that. Like you gotta put it, you gotta trust into this and not be, like mad or
you
questioning
can't transfer the pain that you feel upon the Most High.
Right.
You can't make it his.
But at first I did though. That happened when I was 22. But just I do remember never saying why though. I always was mad at him in regards to my daughter. This is when I was in. But as things changed and progressed in my life, I do. It honestly, it had to be like that's his decision, and at the like that's based on a life that my daughter's dad decided to live. Mm-hmm. This is so whatever, right. So he can't. This is his will. This is what it is. You know what I'm saying? That's between his decision and yours. At the end of the day, it really is not nothing that I can like. Really, it's out of my hands. It's not nothing that should be on my heart. It's not nothing that should be hindering me. But at one point in time, it did, and it delayed my process in life as well.
And your spiritual growth.
Right. So is that like similar to letting his will your faith?
Yeah, because when we, in this life, it's a series of choices that we make. It's a series of situations that the Most High, he's the sustainer, he's the creator and sustainer of all things. He leads and guides us through this thing that we are in, this wilderness, this life experience. He creates and allows things to happen in our life, and we have to make decisions. Are these things going to cause us to draw closer to him, or are these things going to cause us to move away? It's a series of tests that we go through in this life. And when you pass one test, you get another one. If you fail one test, you're gonna get that same test over again. It might look different, but it's really the same one. So and all getting us to the same place of being able to trust in the Almighty. And that's why that's what I'm saying about this here. When we're looking at this, is that Moses is given, this scenario, and the only thing that he's able to do is just accept the scenario. Mm-hmm. He's not able to do anything but just accept what's going to happen. And no, this is the will of the Father. That's how it's going to be. That's it. So
hard though, because
it's not easy for this. No, it's not easy. But it just is.
What he's saying. Like if we're putting this whole situation, it might not be that exact scenario, but just applying the entire lesson just as humans and just make it relatable to how hard it probably was for Moses, really having to know, like, you're dying right now. You're not going to this land.
You're not moving.
All this hard work you put in to keep these people out of God's.
I mean, this is like 40 years later.
Right.
He done invested 40 years in his life.
He keeps leading them back or whatever. He keeps God's having mercy on him. He's making sure that like he's enforcing things a lot. Most likely, I didn't get that far up, but so just to know that you're dying, you're not even making it to this land that you worked so hard to get them to, so you're not even going to get to see it. And then everything's basically in a nutshell is going to go downhill
for you. But these people are going to go ahead and be made fat. Isn't that what we just had on there?
Well, they are, they are made fat, but then they
kick.
Yeah. Well, not that part. You talking about the song, but in what's told to Moses is that the people's going to rebel. The people's going to fall away and start going after other gods. Now the process is what we're getting ready to read, but it's the same. It's the same thing with the song.
Well, I guess it's in 31 verse 20, and I shall bring them into the land flowing with milk and honey, of which I swore to their fathers, and they shall eat and be satisfied and be fat.
Yeah.
Then they shall turn to other mighty ones.
Serve them.
I just think about that, like, because if Moshe gets in there, he's not gonna scorn the Most High. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But at the same time, he's not allowed to go.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at accepting the sovereignty of the Father, sometimes it's not going to necessarily make sense when you're looking at it from your own carnal standpoint. if you look at it from the carnal standpoint, you might agree with yourself that it's unfair.
Right.
But if you look at it from the spiritual standpoint, you're going to agree with the Most High that it is
Right.
fair.
No, that's
or right.
Right. That's why I used that scenario, because at one point in time, like when I say I remember not wanting to grow spiritually at all. You know, not only did I live this lifestyle that I got accustomed to around when I was older, 18 years old. Now this tragedy happened when I turned 22. Now I'm really like, wow, like, you know, this ain't fair to much. I'm looking at it from a human perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Once I got to, not this point, but once it was like a few years later, something else had happened. And I had to actually fully understand, like, you know, this is his choice. And this, and on a spiritual note, like, this is, you live by the gun, you die by the gun. It's not about like, oh, you have kids, so we're going to be fair to them. It doesn't work like that. You know what I mean? You have your chances. And when most people choose the streets, it's really you either get a number for the government to control on you, or you get a number for the tombstone. That's normally the way out. There's no, some people make it, you know, and some people don't, but the vast majority, that's what it is. And it has nothing to do with your loved ones, you know. So
when you start thinking about fair, though, you thinking in the wrong, because perspective, because fair is, you know, fair is really relative. It's just the Most High is not fair.
Think about it,
he's not fair.
You think about it, we living on
he's
a lot.
Just there's a difference.
Yes, yeah. If he was fair, we all be good.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say, when you think about a lot of the things that our struggles that we got are in results to the people that actually broke the covenant. Like it's kind of like passed through, like, you know,
it is
children's children. Like it's your lineage.
It's definitely a combination. It's definitely a big combination. So like, we're in a particular situation because of what somebody else did, but then we continue to perpetuate the ignorance, and just it's a complete cycle. But let's keep on going here, because we want to look and see, because when we look at this Song of Moses, it's interesting at the pattern. So, but what I want to do is I want to actually read through. I want to read through the whole song here. Let's see. Down to it's basically it's almost a whole chapter there. You guys want to split that up maybe if you want. Okay, so read down to 43. And then we'll double back and hit some things out of it.
All right, y'all get ready. I'm about to sing. No, I'm joking. All right. Give ear, O heavens, and let me speak. And hear, O earth, the words of my mouth. Let my instruction fall as rain. My speech drop as dew, as fine rain on the tender plants, and as showers on the grass. For I proclaim the name of Yah. Ascribe greatness to our Elohim. The rock, his work is perfect, for all his ways are right ruling. An El of truth, and without unrighteousness. Righteous and straight is he. A twisted and crooked generation has corrupted itself. They're blemished. They are not his children. Do you do this to Yah, O foolish and unwise people? Is he not your father who brought you, who bought you, who created you and established you? Remember the days of old. Consider the years of many generations. Ask your fathers and let him show you, your elders, and let them say to you. When the Most High gave the nations their inheritance, when he separated the sons of Adam, he set the boundaries of the people according to the number of the children of Israel. For the portion of Yah is his people, Jacob his allotted inheritance. He found him in the wilderness and in the waste hollowing desert. He encompassed him. He made him understand. He watched over him as the apple of his eye. As an eagle stirs up his nest, flutters over his young, spreading out his wings, taking them up bearing them on his wing. Yah alone led them, and there was no strange mighty one with him. He made him ride in the heights of the earth, and he ate the fruits of the field, and he made him to draw honey from the rock, and oil from the flinty rock, curds from the cattle, and milk of the flock, with fat of lambs, and rams of the breed of Bashan, and goats with the choicest wheat. And you drink wine, the blood of the grapes. But Yeshurun grew fat and kicked. You grew fat. You grew thick. You are covered with fat. So he forsook Eloi, who made him, and scorned the rock of his deliverance. They moved him in jealousy with foreign matters. I'll say that again. They moved him to jealousy with foreign matters. With abominations, they provoked him. They slaughtered to demons, not to Eloi. Mighty ones they did not know. New ones who came later, which your fathers did not fear. You neglected the rock who brought you forth, and forgot the El who fathered you. And y'all saw and despised because of the provocations of his sons and his daughters. And he said, let me have my face from them. Let me see what their end is. For they are a perverse generation, children in whom there is no trusting. They made me jealous by what is not El. They provoked me with their worthless matters. But I make them jealous by those who are no people. I provoke them with a foolish nation. Ooh. For a fire was kindled in my wrath, and burns to the bottom of Sheol, and consumed the earth and its increase, and sets on fire the foundations of mountains. I gather evil upon them. I use up my arrows upon them, wasted by saccharin of food, and consumed by heat and bitter destruction. And the teeth of the beast I send upon them, with the poisons of serpents of the dust. The word bereaves from the outside and far from within, both young men and maidens, nursing child with the man of gray hairs. I said, I should bow them or blow them away. I should make the remembrance of them to cease from among men. If I did not fear the enemy's taunt, lest their adversaries misunderstood, lest they say, our hand is high, and Yah has not done all this. For they are a nation lost to counsel, and there is no understanding in them. No understanding in them. If they were wise, they would understand this. They would consider their later end. How will one chase 1,000, and two put 10,000 to flight, unless their rock had sold them, and Yah had given them up? For their rock is not like our rock. Even our enemies are judges. Their vines is of the vine of cedar, and of the fields of Amorah. Their grapes are grapes of gall. Their clusters are bitter. Their wine is the poisons of serpents, and the fierce venom of cobras. It is not stored up with me, sealed up among my treasures. Vengeance is mine, and repayment at the time their foot slips. For near is the day of their calamity, and the matters prepared are hasting to them. For Yah rightly rules his people, and has compassion on his servants, when he sees that their power is gone, and there is no one remaining, shut up or at large. And he shall say, where are the mighty ones, the rock in whom they sought refuge, who ate the fat of their slaughterings, and drank the wine of their drink offerings? Let them arise and help you. Let it be a hiding place for you. See now that I am he, and there is no Elohim besides me. I put to death and make alive. I have wounded and I have healed, and from my hand no one delivers. For I lift my hand to the heavens and shall say, as I live forever, I have sharpened my flashing sword, and my hand takes hold of judgment. I shall return vengeance to my enemies and repay those who hate me. I make my arrows drunk with blood, and my sword devour flesh, with the blood of the slain and the captives, from the long-haired enemies' chiefs. O nations, acclaim his people, for he avenged the blood of his servants, and returned vengeance to his adversaries, and shall pardon his land, his people. Hallelujah.
Okay. So when we look at this, right, it's interesting to see what happens, kind of the process of this whole thing. If we look back at the beginning verses, look at a couple things here. Okay, so going back all the way back up to the first verse. Give ear, O heavens, and let me speak, and hear, O earth, the words of my mouth. Again, Moses was told by the Almighty that the people was going to go astray, and that he was to teach this song to the people. And this song was going to be a witness to the people, in that time. So when we look at this now, well, I guess I'll ask a question before I say what I would say about it. When we look at this, thinking about a disobedient, kind of rebellious, gone astray people, if you was to hear this this song that we just went through, what of it would cause you to turn around?
If you're already wicked, you're saying?
Yeah, because remember now, they said the people was going to go astray. Mm-hmm. And then when they go astray, Moses was being instructed to teach these people this song. So this song would be in their mouths at that time.
Right. So you're saying what will make you turn around?
Yeah, from this, from hearing that.
I mean, I would want to turn around knowing that I'm kindling his anger, like knowing that I'm like making him angry in the part where he's like the wrath of him even saying what he's going to have his enemies do to me, like knowing that he's going to have his enemies like what's the word he used to kind of like was a P word. It's way down. But I would want to turn around just knowing that I'm angering the Most High, and knowing that he's going to allow my enemies to basically, what's the word he used? It was like where like.
So you saying
yeah, like I don't, this me, I'm using me. This is the Most High. This ain't a person that I can physically fight. Yeah. This is a high power that I've never seen a face of. I can't physically beat that. That's no person evil can know how you gonna get up there and do it. So me knowing that I'm angering this high power that has control over a lot, that would make me want to turn. Just me personally. Knowing that you're going to be in control of my enemies. Like, I don't know how you can control these. Like, I don't even know what I'm facing. I don't have the power to really get out here and physically fight this. This is crazy. So that would inflict fear in me for me to want to straighten up, and me knowing like, whoa, he's going to do this. He's going to control a nation against me. Like, wait a minute, what? He's not going to have my back. Hold up. Let me that will make me want to turn around.
So you saying this thing's bringing out the thought of provoking the wrath of the Almighty, and that in of itself is good enough for you in terms of
that's good enough for me. I can't fight the Almighty.
Yeah.
Like if it's now when we talking about a human being threatening me, like, oh, come on, let's come outside. That's different. But this a regular person doing that ain't no most high person. This is a person that is very high. What? And this is just, I'm even speaking. Okay, let's put to like pull out the fact that I'm a believer of. We're gonna pull it out. This is still a higher entity that you do not know how to battle with. That is enough for me.
I think that I might not have presented the question properly, because as I'm thinking about what you're saying now, if you're in disobedience, you didn't already prove that you don't really care about the provoking the wrath of the Almighty, because you're there already. You've already done it. So I think that to think about it from that perspective, that would be the thing that would keep you from going there in the first place. Because once you're there already, you've already through your actions shown that you're not thinking about his wrath to begin with.
Now pause that for a second, because here's the thing: when you're not taught to the letter of the Bible, and I'm going to speak that. Here's the thing: you don't know the magnitude, and that's one big beef that a relative of mine has with the religion we grew up with. We was never taught the magnitude of how, like, I was always taught like blindsided that God is compassionate as long as you are a good person. He knows your heart. So honestly, I never knew the magnitude of it. Like, for me to be reading and seeing stuff that he said, I hate that. Like, I just read a verse 2 nights ago where he said, don't have sex with a man as you would a woman. I hate that. I didn't even know God hated stuff. Now, I knew that was wrong. I know right from wrong. So no, I'm going to stand on it. So the question that was asked properly. If I know the magnitude, I know I'm going to anger the Most High. That's enough for me. In my disobedience, speaking personally, it wasn't because like, oh, I know God's going to that. I don't care. I didn't know the magnitude. What I know right now.
What I'm saying is that when we're thinking about what the Song of Moses is, the point of it is what I'm saying. I'm saying that, speaking of Israel anyway, Moses is supposed to teach them this song so that they don't go astray. And when they do go astray, they're supposed to remember the song. So what I'm saying is that these people who end up going astray after this song is something that's taught to them. I'm saying at that time, for those people, they obviously was not thinking about the wrath of the Almighty when they went ahead and did those things. Now, the song, yes, is going to bring that back to your remembrance. And, that I'm saying that yes, absolutely is the first thing that we think about, because the fear of Yahweh is the beginning of wisdom.
That's right.
We don't want to seek to do anything for him lest we fear him first. So I'm saying you're thinking about it from the right perspective, but I'm saying when we look at this, as this, if we was going to think about this as some preventative thing, we've already ignored him, when we get in, not talking about somebody who doesn't know anything,
right?
Somebody who doesn't know anything.
So you're saying after we already know this song and we're still here,
and you still,
okay?
Yeah,
so
we
know this song. We know. Okay, so you're asking like they know this song. They've known it because they already been taught it right now.
Right.
So now it's already been done. Like they're cutting up already. So you're saying, what are you asking? After you know the song, you're already in your ways. Mm-hmm. What's want to be a turn? What part of the song will make you want to?
Yeah, because that's the reality for them, because they're Israel.
Okay.
They've been here heard the song, and they're supposed to have been taught it.
Okay.
Over and over again, and then they go astray. So I'm saying, looking at it from that perspective, you know, what is. I'm not saying that what you're saying is wrong, because the process of it, that's how you get back, is thinking about
The fear.
yeah, that fear. That's how you get back.
Right. Okay.
Well, I think
I get the question you're asking now. So the turnaround that I was. Well,
Oh, hold on, Chris is saying something. What'd you say?
Well, I think that, you know, this song became like a classic. It became like the old school jam. You know what I'm saying? Like a jam back in the day where you didn't listen to it that frequently. And so they forgot, I think, about, you know, things. And so when most people go into sin, they don't go into it thinking they're going to get caught. They don't think about the consequences of their actions. Like, oh, well, I know if I do this thing that the Most High is going to do this. And I don't think nobody in Israel went into sin with that mindset. They went into it for whatever reason, whatever outcome they were looking to receive, but they weren't looking for the punishment. And so once the punishment came, then this song comes to their mind. Like once they start going through some of the things that, you know what I mean, he would heap mischief upon them. They shall be burnt with hunger, burning heat and bitter destruction. Once these things start happening, then you start remembering that old school song and like, oh, I need to turn around because I can see that, you know, the things that were rehearsed in my youth, this song is actually coming about. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I hear what you're saying. So I think hearing from both of y'all, there's like a forgetting thing that happens. Right? Because we forget what got us here, and then we just start doing whatever, and then when we're in the midst of whatever, then we remember again.
Yeah, that's what the scripture says. They forgot the rock of their salvation.
Yeah.
At the rock of their salvation.
Okay, so let's see here. Okay, so the process of the song, because okay, so I'm saying that the process of the song, I think, helps us to be able, you know, for us looking at it, helps us to bypass the forgetting part. But I'm gonna pull it up to where we are here. So we see here, it starts off, look at my instructions, proclaiming Yahweh, ascribe his greatness, dealing with the rock who is the Almighty. His work is perfect, all his ways are right ruling. You know, we talked about what verse is that? 4. Let's look at some of these words here. For his ways are just. His ways are just. Let me pull this up in the we want to look at some of these things here. His work is perfect. All his ways
Right there.
are, it says judgment. Which word is that there? Mishpat. All his ways are judgment.
Right here. Right under it to the left.
Oh, I see just here. All right, so we're gonna get to this first. He is the Elohim of truth. That's what I want to look at here. Emunah. Emunah, firmness, security, moral fidelity, faithful or faithliness, stability, steady. When we think about Elohim being the Elohim of truth, and truth, emunah, being this word that means firmness or security or stability, the Most High is not wishy-washy. He don't like teeter totter. Right? And when we think about faith from a Hebraic standpoint, it involves firmness, right? Steadiness, right? It's unwavering, right? He's the Elohim of unwaveringness, right? Oh, and by the way, in the New Testament, I think it's in Hebrews, where it talks about without faith, it's impossible to please Elohim.
Without faith.
So, without us having faith, it's impossible for us to please Elohim. He's the Elohim of faith. He's the Elohim of firmness, but he calls for us to be firm as well. And if we can't be firm, it's impossible for us to please him. So when we're looking at this, it's first of all starts off giving you these attributes of who Yahweh is, right? That's how it even starts off talking about these attributes of the Almighty, right? His ways are judgment. He's the Elohim of firmness. He's without crookedness. He's without iniquity. This word here, I think, is evil, iniquity, perverseness, unjust, wicked. So what? Let's see what else this is. When we think about iniquity here, or perversion, or twistedness, we could think about things that are, we know it says Yahweh's not the Elohim. He's not the God of confusion, right? This word here, that's translated as iniquity, is really that idea of perversion or twistedness, confusion, right? He's without that. He's without these things that are perverse, right, and twisted.
What's the word for iniquity again?
This word here is avel. Avel. Evil, iniquity, perverseness, unjust or unjustly, wickedly. Ein Vav Lamed. Avel. Yeah. So again, he's starting off giving you these attributes of himself, right? Elohim of truth, firmness. He's without iniquity. He's just. Sadiq, probably. What's that? Sadiq. Just. Lawful, righteous. Sadiq. And right. What is this here? Yashar. Oh, we're gonna see this one here. Yeah. Yashar. Straight, upright, equity, just, right? When we talk about fairness, right? This right here don't got nothing to do with that, right? He's about equity. He's just, right? Yashar. Okay, so again, looking at this, he starts off talking about his attributes, right? And then what happens? They have corrupted themselves. Their spot is not the spot of his children. They are perverse and crooked generation. But I wanted to go down to, because I want to do a little offshoot here. Let's see if I think it's way down here. Oh, I can start here. So let me get out of this version here. Because going back to what the thought process of thinking about how this song could keep us, not necessarily bringing us back, because we know it could bring us back, but how can it keep us, right? If we go down, let's see, verse 12. Wait. Read 13 down to 15 again.
Sure. He made him ride in the heights of the earth. He ate the fruits of the field, and he made him to draw honey from the rock and oil from the flinty rock, herds from the cattle, and milk of the flock, with fats of the lamb, and rams of the breed of Bashan, and goats with the choice wheat. And you drank wine, the blood of the grapes. Yet your strength grew fat and kicked. You grew fat. You grew thick. You are covered with fat. So he forsook Eloi, who made him, and scorned the rock of his deliverance.
Okay, this is where I wanted to kind of sit at, was here with this verse 15. Yes, you run. Yes, you run. Here, let's pull that up because we're going to break this. We're going to get into this one here. Because we're going to see here. We're going to see here, yes, you run, which means upright, which really means the upright or upright ones. It's connected to that other word we just looked at, yashar. It's a derivative of yashar, having that same definition of upright ones. But this is like this little name that's given for Israel in about 3 or 4 places in the scriptures, right? But I wanted to call attention to what's going on, right? The Most High blesses these people and causes all of these blessings to befall us. And then Israel goes astray. It seems backwards, don't it?
Yeah.
You getting all these blessings, right? And then you turn away.
It just seems like that's never good enough with
or it's too good.
It's too good.
It's good enough. It's definitely good enough.
No, it's good enough. I'm just talking about it just seemed like that's how they when they first got out of Egypt, they thought they was going to starve, I guess. I don't know. They told Moses, like, you got us out here to die. Like, when we was in Egypt, we could eat when we wanted to. We told you to leave us there to serve the Egyptians. Like, no, you just cried. You was crying out to God. You was crying out to the Lord and asking him to deliver you. And now you're saying you told him to leave you there. It just seemed like with them and just human nature.
It's even like now, like people run and they'll be, oh God, please, 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 or oh, you know what I mean? And then soon as they get out of the jam that they was in at that point in time, now they back to regular. They cool now. Yeah. Now they could go back.
And that's what I meant by
but this is like this is the opposite end of that spectrum, because we're not even talking about being in anything. Now we're talking about an overabundance of blessings.
Right, but
everything's good. Not when we think about the wilderness,
right.
The wilderness wasn't that good. Like he was providing for them, but it was like I gotta sit up here and eat these things like every day. Like I gotta make it different ways. Like we out here, we gotta look around for water and stuff. We're dying. I'm not talking about that. Like here is an overabundance of goodness happening. And then you go astray.
Right. Biggie Small said it best.
Oh, wait.
More problems.
Hold on. Chris is trying to say something. What do you say?
Biggie Small said it best. More money, more problems.
More money, more problems.
Right.
You know, that's the thing. That's the nature of the beast. It's like when you have access to all of these blessings, man, it leads to sin. You know what I mean? It leads you to do things that you wouldn't normally have the ability to do.
Right.
You know what I mean? So when you get fat, you get lazy, you get, you know what I'm saying? You get a little, stuck in your way, like, oh, well, it's just going to be like this forever. You start, you know what I mean, slipping a little bit and not doing the things that you would normally do if things weren't so good.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And just realizing, like he said, for money, more problems. Like you're this blessing of abundance. You're drawing attention from. You're not all attention ain't good attention. So you might be drawing in people that or they're different from. They got other things going on. They do things differently, but you're sitting. Your blessings got you pulling these people's attention. So now you're meeting people that may not be good to put in your surroundings. Right. And you're not supposed to be picking up any of their traits or whatever their customs are. And so, more money, more problems might be a good way to put it.
I think the point here that I think we need to hone in on is the fact that in terms of looking at this thing as being this preventative thing, like the Song of Moses, it like how it played out, they're going to fall away, and then singing this thing will cause them maybe to come back. But I'm saying that we should be able to look at this thing and see it as a preventative action, not like something that's going to fix the problem, but like a preventative thing. Not even having to go to right. So when we thinking about it from that perspective, I'm saying the thing that we can gain from this to use it as a preventative action is watching how the thing flows. And how it flows is that you have this people who are receiving all of these things, these blessings from the Almighty, and then they go astray, right? Let me pull it up because Hiskey's taking a long time with my Bible. Yeah, let me see yours. I need to be able to flip the pages.
Yeah. Why are you pulling it up? I understand what you're saying. If you are truly rehearsing this thing, like if it is truly being sang and rehearsed, day in and day out, it is a warning. It's a warning that if you heed the words of this warning, it should keep you from falling into these traps.
Right.
So my thing is they must have stopped rehearsing this thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if you read it and like, okay, well, if I go astray, these things are going to happen. You know what I'm saying? And and I have to beware that when the blessings happen, when things get good and we wax fat, we gotta make sure.
Hold on, sir. Go ahead. What you say, Chris?
How it reads is like if when we wax fat and we start getting blessings, we gotta beware that we don't fall off. Yeah. If they're reading this thing, it basically is giving you a roadmap to how things can go if you do the wrong thing. And this, if you rehearse this in your children's ear and whatnot, they should be like, okay, these are the signs.
Yeah.
We're living good now, so we got to make sure that we don't fall off like the song says.
Yes, that's what I'm getting at. The problem is that whenever life is just good, overly good, perfect, and great, you forget where it is your blessings even came from in the first place.
That's right.
And then that's where you fall away. Whenever I think it's in the beginning of Deuteronomy, when the Most High is saying, when you get into the land, and when you eat and are satisfied, make sure that you get. Hold on, is that Deuteronomy or is it Exodus?
Let
me see.
Going to the land.
Oh yeah, it is Deuteronomy. I think it's chapter.
I guess when he was talking, his picture like him,
Oh yeah. Deuteronomy chapter 8. I can't find that, so it's in my own.
I know what you mean. No, for real.
It's Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 10.
Right.
It says, when thou hast eaten and art full, then thou shalt bless Yahweh thy Elohim for the good land which he hath given thee. Beware that thou forget not Yahweh thy Elohim in not keeping his commandments and his judgments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, lest when thou hast eaten and are full and hast built goodly houses and dwell therein, and when thou heard, he's saying all of these things that was what happened in the song, then thine heart be lifted up and thou forget Yahweh thy Elohim, which brought thee forth out of the land of Egypt from the house of bondage.
From the house of bondage.
Right. So we receiving all of these blessings from the Almighty and then forget how we even got here in the first place, because everything is just so peaches and cream.
You know, I like to touch on that because I was speaking to Pastor Curtis about that, you know, from Mount Eric.
Yeah.
You know, when he was doing the food bank thing, and I stopped through and I was telling him about that. Their intentions in the beginning are very good, you know. But like I told him, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. But once that money kicked in, that love of money, evil was abound. I said, so you no longer did it for y'all. He wasn't doing it actually for him in the first place. But however, the money was involved. So that was sort of like his motivation. You know, it became entertainment to him, the way to draw in more money. So he kind of forgot the position that he was placed in the first place. He forgot who provided him with such teachings and opening understandings, which he ended up twisting himself and forgot all about it, which carried him into more darkness with a love of money. Simple as that.
All right, so what I want to do is look more closely here at verse 15, right? Because thinking about this idea of what happened in terms of the people falling away after being blessed, I want to look at this word again. We looked at this Yeshurun, and again, it's a derivative of the word Yashar, which means upright, and Israel is referred to as Yeshurun just a few times in the scriptures, but it's always in connection with them being at this kind of pinnacle, like this high place. Here again it says, but Yeshurun grew fat and kicked. You grew fat, you grew thick. It's always them right at that point before falling away. But I wanted to kind of think about the names of Israel. In the thought process of thinking about the Song of Moses in terms of this being, again, this preventative thing, where we look at Israel, how Israel kind of, in Israel's existence is kind of this cyclical thing where, you have a people who are living for the Almighty and fall off and are restored and fall off. We see where we are even today, where Israel has been destroyed and scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. But when we think about, I wanted to pay attention to, starting looking at the names of Israel, and there's something I think there's to be learned that kind of corresponds with what we're looking at in terms of this Song of Moses, in terms of looking at keeping our eyes on the Almighty. Even when we looked at how Moses was told what was going to happen beforehand, and again how we even started off talking about in terms of being able to continually trust in the Almighty, and remembering him at all times. Okay, so I wanted to go backwards, because we're able to see when we think about Israel as in terms of the man, Israel, and the people Israel. I want to look at these names and see how they can correlate with our growth from a spiritual perspective. Because again, we look at Yeshurun, it's always it always is only used about 3 times in the scriptures, and it's always used at a place where it's describing, again, like I said, Israel kind of at this pinnacle place. So I'm saying that it looks to me that we're able to see kind of this pointing us towards kind of this spiritually, if we're looking at this fat and grown version of Israel right before the fall off point. Of course, we don't want to go to that place, but I wanted to look at, if we go back and look at let's see here. I want to go back to, let me pull it up, Genesis, because something interesting happens with Israel in regards to this whole naming thing. If we go back, let's see, Genesis 32. Let's see. John, can you read down to 31?
Mm-hmm. And Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until the breaking of day. And when he saw that he did not overcome him, he touched the socket of his hip, and the socket of Jacob's hip was dislocated as he wrestled with him. And he said, "Let him go, for the day breaks." But he said, "I am not letting you go until you have blessed me." So he asked him, "What is your name?" And he said, "Jacob." And he said, "Your name is no longer called Jacob, but Yisrael, because you have striven with Elohim and with men, and have overcome." And
read to 31.
Okay. And Jacob asked him, saying, "Please let me know your name." And he said, "Why do you ask about my name?" And he blessed him there. And Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, for I have seen Elohim face to face, for my life is preserved. And the sun rose on him as he passed over Peniel and leapt on his hip.
Okay, so when we look at this, we see where Yaakov is, his name is changed from Yaakov, the supplanter, to Yisrael. But the interesting thing happens when we look at this, which is different from, say, when we look at Abraham name being changed, or Sarah's name being changed. Mm-hmm. When we see them, every time we see them referred to after their name change, you don't see Avram no more after the Most High said, and he says it the same way how he said this over here, and your name is no longer called Yaakov but Yisrael. Genesis, let me pull it up. Genesis 17 and 5. Genesis 17 and 5. He says it the same way, right? And no longer your name called Avram, but your name shall be Avraham. And then every other time we see him referred to is Avram. The same thing we see in 17:15. And Elohim said to Avram, as for Sarai, your wife, do not call her name Sarai, for Sarah is her name. And then every other time we see her name used, is no longer this, it's always this, forever.
Mm-hmm.
Except Jacob is different. Yaakov is different. He's still called Yaakov all over the place. It's almost interchangeable throughout the scriptures, over and over again, whether talking about the people or the man. It's both. You know, you see in scriptures the son of Jacob, the sons of Jacob, the sons of Israel, over and over again. So thinking about then what these names represent, I think helps us to be able to look at this whole idea of kind of this progression that we need to have in life to keep us on a particular path, right? Because when we think about, again, still thinking about the Song of Moses, but honing in on this idea of Yeshurun, the upright ones, who again is just another name for Israel. We're able to see these different characteristics that are connected with these names, and learn about our own selves when we think about it. So when we think about Jacob, when we think about Yaakov, we could really think about Yaakov from a position of just being just carnality, right? When we see even in terms of the whole thing with the blessing and the literal stealing of the blessing, right? Where he's following the plan of his mother to go and literally steal this thing from his father, who wasn't able to see him that good, right? They tricked him. Now the thing about it is, when you think about that, where you look at how he was prophesied to be, even though he was the youngest, to be on top. And so then they went and did what they had to do to carry that out. I would say that if they wouldn't have did that, the Most High's words is still going. Like, the Most High don't need you in your carnality to have his plans be carried out. Because again, he is just, right? He's upright. We can't look at what Jacob did and say that was right because the end result is right.
Right.
Because he literally tricked his dad into giving him the blessing. Because he wasn't looking at this thing from a spiritual perspective. It was carnal.
Right.
It was just his carnal mind working. So moving forward, when we see over here, when we just looked at, when we get to this place where he's wrestling with this man or angel or whoever it was that he was wrestling with, who changes his name to Israel. I'm saying, why is his name not just changed that after that? Why do we still see him being referred to back as Jacob, going back and forth?
I said, you know what? I'm going to touch on that because I did an answer to a question when someone was asking me why You know, why did y'all change certain people's names? And why did we change our names? You know, I was going into the context of giving a name of a calling. You know, most names, well, the scriptures already tell you a name is worth more than riches, of things of that nature. But however, it describes your character, but not only your character, but also your calling as well. But sometimes when we cut up, there's people that call us by our original names, you know. And as I was studying, I see that sometimes Israel was called Jacob. He had to be reminded, you know, who he really was. So often that happens, you know, like when I call a lot of people by their Hebrew names and I see them cutting up or whatnot, I'll be sarcastic sometimes and call them by their birth names that their mama gave them, just on purpose and spite. You know, they get offended.
But well, is it because well, kind of like what he said, characteristic wise, like with Jacob, I actually forgot he did that tricking part. I forgot he did that. He tricked his dad. So like
but it was a mom.
I do notice, like,
yeah, his mom had something to do with that.
You just being as though you pointed that out. I didn't even never pay attention that Abraham is referred to as Abraham. The rest of the like, he's never referred to as Abram again.
Yeah.
Is that like how we are as Israel? I'm just saying we, not, but yeah, how we are as Israelites back and forth with the it's 1 minute they're like they be right here and then things go good and then they fall back. Is that like the representation as why he sometimes call him Jacob and sometimes call him Israel?
I think it's not always negative.
No, it's not always negative.
It's not always negative, but what I'm saying is that we could think about it in that regard because we can see where there's a transition from the Most High's bringing Yaakov to a higher level.
Right.
He was Jacob, and he's bringing him now to a higher level.
Elevate.
Now he's Yisrael. But all the time it's not necessarily negative when he's referred to as Jacob. But when you think about the transition of the name from Jacob to Israel, it is kind of an upward thing.
Right.
And when we think about where he began, and Jacob being the supplanter, the grabber of the heel, the one that's pulling his brother back, and then going into the one who's striving with Elohim, you know, there's a difference in the significance of the names.
Right.
So when we think about it from a perspective of Israel as a whole, in terms of our progression, you know, we start off from this kind of carnal perspective, right? Jacob, Yaakov. But we should be progressing to that higher level where we're striving with Elohim. But there is still kind of this teetering back and forth. So when we look like say for instance at Genesis 46 and 40, Well, yeah, that's the thing that we have, and outside of the spirit, that's all you have is your carnal mind. So you don't necessarily have that stability because you don't have that spiritual transformation. But if we look 46, Genesis 46:2, Elohim spoke, even right here, right? Elohim spoke to Yisrael in the visions of the night and said, Yaakov, Yaakov. And he said, Here I am.
Here I am.
Right? He didn't already change the name, right? But in the dream, he's calling him Yaakov.
Yeah. Snatches attention. You know how your mom, you know how we get these little nicknames that our family gives us sometimes. But when we cut up, your mom will give you your whole name.
Right, but what I'm saying is that it's not always a negative thing.
It's not always negative.
I'm saying in regards to this, it's not as if whenever the Most High say Jacob, that he's mad.
No, but he's trying to get your attention.
even
there was times when my mother would call me Dre.
Yeah.
You know, just in general. But when she really wanted to get my attention,
she'll
call me my whole name.
That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying.
I mean, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but
I'm saying that
metaphor. I'm saying that's not what we see. I'm saying they're almost interchangeable in the scriptures.
It is interchangeable.
They're almost interchangeable as to where you can't even tell necessarily. You know, if we was to look at all the places, this is one example. What you can see in multiple places in the scripture, where even in one verse, it's referring to Israel, and it's talking about it, and it will say Israel and Jacob in the same scripture.
Yeah, I understand that.
In the same, not like one's good and one's bad, or I want to reiterate something, elevate one thing, diminish another thing. It's not necessarily that. I'm saying that in the scriptures, in many places, they're almost interchangeable.
Well, I'm not saying one was good,
which would be different. Which be different if I'm trying to get your attention. So I want your attention. So I'm gonna say one thing or the other.
Is it like a reminder? Is it like a reminder? Like because in the next line he say, I am Elohim, your father. Do not be afraid to go down to Mishraim, for I shall make you there into a great nation. Is it like a reminder, like kind of like a uplifting? Like sometimes, like when you use carnal mind, sometimes we kind of like get like. Sometimes we get like. What am I trying to say? Sometimes like our carnal mind be more so. Get the best of us as opposed to the Most High supposed to be in a manifestation until it gets discouraging, or it gets you might even get like not discouraging, but just like get too comfortable or whatnot. Is it like a spiritual reminder, and what he calls them that, like as far as like there you come, not in a negative way, but is it like more so like just like a reminder of who he is?
I think that it could be looked at in that regards. Again, in some places, I think it can be looked at in that regard. But what I'm trying to look at here is the fact that there is that teetering back and forth with these two things, which you could look at from this elevated kind of status, which is Israel, and the original kind of carnal status that's Jacob. And we think about who our personal journeys, where we have our beginning point, and then we have our kind of elevated status point. But when we look at our example, which is Israel as a whole in the scriptures, there is that teetering back and forth. But what I'm saying is that the places that we see it, there's still a higher place. There's still a higher place, which is where we left off in the Song of Moses, which is Yeshurun, which is that place that's like filled with blessing from the Almighty, being that upright one.
That is true.
Right, but when we see the examples in the Old Testament, the so-called Old Testament of Yeshurun, there's Israel as a whole is still at that place where they haven't, Messiah hasn't come. Right, so we don't have that total fulfillment of being that upright one. Israel. We're brought to a place by the Almighty, but without having that Ruach inside of us, we still fall back into that wrestling place.
That's what I was referring to, because when I read this scripture, Genesis 46:2, and y'all spoke to Israel in the vision of the night, he said, Jacob, Jacob, and he said, here I am. I myself have experienced where the Ruach called me by both names in the wee hours of the morning. I heard Andre, just like I heard O'Day. You understand? But from my experience, when I hear Andre, I know something serious is getting ready to come. I wakes up, tell me to write things down and all. I know something serious. Like I'll give you an example. When Wisdom, I call her Wisdom. You know, she called me O'Day. During our conversation sometime, when she really want to get my attention and she think I'm not paying attention, she'll say, Andre. And I'll say, here I am, what's up? You know, I knew that would get your attention. And then she'll go on explaining what she had to say. It don't have nothing to do with bad or good. You know, just in the aspect of what you were saying.
Yeah, but I think I don't think that is necessarily a direct parallel.
I'm just saying,
but
it applies to me, that verse period.
Yeah, but what it
applies to people differently.
But what I'm saying is that it's not a direct parallel when we talk about like when I'm looking at you and what your mom called you and what your spiritual name is, it don't have the same significance. I'm saying as far as this is what I'm saying is that
I'm not
right. So right. So what I'm saying is that when we look in the scriptures, right, I'm saying that it's interchangeable, and when we see the interchangeableness in the names, it's giving you that thought process of having this back and forth thing that we have as human beings, this back and forth thing that we have with this fight with the spirit and with the flesh, with their carnal minds and with the spiritual mind, where when Israel was at this place prior to the Ruach being poured out onto his people, Israel was always in this back and forth place of being carnal and being spiritual.
That's why you say, "Oh, seed of Israel, his servant, oh, children of Jacob, his chosen ones." That's in the same sense.
It's in the same sentence. Yeah, okay. It's interchangeable. It's not like one has, like, if I really want you to hear what I'm saying, I'm gonna call you one thing. And if you know, it's interchangeable. If we look, it does the same thing here, right? And he established it to Yaakov for a law, to Israel as an everlasting covenant. It's still using both.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. But when I look at that and thinking about the names of Israel, which there are 3 that we know of, one that we don't know of, we talk about that later, that's going to that new name, right? But there's 3 that we know of. But when we think about them in terms of their meanings and their significances, we're able to put those names, we're able to categorize those names based on their meanings,
right?
And we're able to see, moreover, our process, how we come from being, carnally minded to being spiritually minded, but fighting against the carnal mind. And when we look at Israel, that's, this really is where we are wanting to get to the place of Yeshurun being upright ones at that pinnacle.
Right.
But even more so than that, because again, every time we see Yeshurun, the next thing you see is the fall. Right. But when we could think about it in terms of being that pinnacle from a spiritual perspective, but through Yeshua having us in a place where we're not falling back, where we're able to stay in that place. And again, we think about Elohim being the Elohim of truth, right? And us being those that we say we're in the faith, right? When we say that, we're saying we're in firmness,
right?
We're in stability, right? Right. So when we think about that pinnacle spot, which is Yeshurun, and we being followers of Messiah, having the rock inside of us, it brings us to a place that the Israel of the scriptures, the Old Testament anyway, they was never able to reach that place.
Right.
It's always hypothetical, really, anyway, right? When Yeshurun is spoken, but it's never kind of this long lasting thing. The people live and they get fat off the land and then they fall off, right? So again, when we think about this idea of the Song of Moses being this thing that's able to be preventative, the thing that it did was showed us the process, which was getting all these blessings from the Almighty, then falling off. But if we can see that's the process, we're able to see that we need to be able to acknowledge the fact that it's the Most High giving us all of these blessings and not forget that part, right? Not get to that place of forgetting.
Preventing what's already been happening, I guess.
Getting up to the top,
and like preventing that fall. Like,
forgot how you having that spiritual amnesia, how you got there in the first place.
Right.
We all do that. Right?
We all do that.
Right.
But when I
down upon the people,
those little so and so's,
those little people,
when you guys gonna get y'all little lives together and come up here where I'm at?
Too. Yeah. But when I read them scriptures right there, remember his covenant forever. The word he commanded for 1,000 generations, which he made with Abraham and his oath to Isaac, and he established it to Jacob for a law. But guess what? To Israel as an everlasting covenant, which telling me, my spirit is telling me, yes, it was given to Jacob, even before he became Israel.
Yeah.
So the covenant was established through him and his seeds, which became Israel as an everlasting covenant.
Yeah.
You understand? So that's showing me the difference right there as far as the name Yaqub and Israel. That's what was just revealed to me. He established it to Yaqub for the law, yet to Israel as an everlasting covenant, because Israel came through Jacob, whose name later became Israel for that purpose. You understand? That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
So what we want to be able to gain from all this is actually not having this kind of how you look at like the little projections of like the stock market, how it just goes up and down, right?
Yeah.
If we look at our lives in the spirit like that, that's not what, like, if we're taking on the character of the Almighty, who is the Elohim of truth, emunah, stability, right? If we're taking on the character of the Almighty, the result of that shouldn't be this up and down kind of thing.
I think I like to study something like that too, where when you look at it in that stock market form, like God has been the biggest investor in us. He really has. He's been the greatest.
He invested more in you than you invested
right.
in yourself.
He's been the greatest investor in us, and we want to uphold our end and not make him look like he did it all for nothing. So when you think of that up and down wish flip flop that we do, or people do, that we do, you just want to be steady as he is with you.
Yep.
And then as you're doing that and living this way, it should influence others as well.
Yeah, but we got to be like, when we look at Israel, and it's not as if we could look at ancient Israel and say that they was a bad example for us. They were the example that they could be, but they're the example for us and showing us that outside of the Ruach HaKodesh, that's what it looks like.
Exactly.
They showed us what life outside of Messiah looks like.
Right. Right.
You know, and that's what it looks like. It looks like that up and down thing. That, you know, it's not, you know, you can't look at them and be like, they just seen these things. Why they doing this? Why they acting like this? Just because they're human beings.
That's right.
If you was back there, you'd have did the same exact thing.
You know what? That's why I tell a lot of people, especially babes in the truth, just because they're Israelite by nationality does not mean they're righteous. I say, y'all surprised at these actions taking place now. Wait a minute, they took place. They took place way back in Israel during biblical times. Scripture tells us ain't nothing new under the sun. So it's obviously it'll happen today as well.
And some people are just Jacob.
Yeah.
They're not Israel.
They're not Israel.
Yeah.
They just Jacob. They go around calling themselves Israel.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you're acting like Jacob. You're not acting like Israel.
Right, right.
What was you gonna say, mother?
No, I was just saying that is how I be looking at. I get frustrated but I be frustrated and I'll be like, you know what, that's how I was too. So I guess I'll be up and down, but it's just more so using it as an example of use their lessons as your lesson to help teach you.
Right.
Instead of being upset because that's just wasted, but like more so use it as like what not to do. It's kind of like how even with my daughter, I tell her I don't like use me as the tool of what not to do so you can have it better.
Read this verse here, verse 6 right there, verse 6.
Those who come, he caused to take root in Yaakov. Israel shall blossom and bud, and they shall fill the face of the world with fruit.
Read that one more time.
Those who come, he causes to take root in Jacob, layman's term. Israel shall blossom and bud, and they shall fill the face of the world with fruit.
Yeah.
Righteous fruit at that.
So in that verse right there, shows us kind of a progression right there, right? Where you see that progression from, you know, carnality into that kind of spiritual thing that's blossoming and budding now into something and causing something to come forth, right? So we should strive in this life to be progressing, moving forward, not teeter-tottering, not going backwards for surely, not going backwards, but moving forwards towards the you know, closer and closer to where the Almighty is causing for us to go, right? And you know, that right there was a pretty good verse that's showing that. But again, we think about this whole idea of Yeshu run is giving us, when we look back in the so-called Old Testament, the scriptures showing us, it just gives us these hints of this place that's kind of like this height. Is causing us to points us towards Messiah, I think.
It does.
Because Messiah is the one who caused us to be upright ones.
That's right.
Messiah is the one who causes us who takes us from that place of kind of moving, you know, falling back and forth and going back into carnality. Like we talking about, when we look at ancient Israel, we're not talking about just little slip-ups. Like Israel was literally going into like paganism, like all the way. Like they was falling all the way off. It wasn't like just a little oops, like, oh, my fault. I'm sorry for this little thing that I done. It wasn't that. Israel was falling all the way off, right? So you know, we definitely can't be in that zone, right? Because again, if we think about truth, and truth is just a derivative of faith. If we think about us as being, you know, walking in faith, is not wishy-washy,
right?
You not falling into like this the whole reason that we have this Song of Moses in the first place is because you got this people that continually fall off.
I think about like the ground. We talk about this all the time. How the ground is stuff that everybody can understand. Everybody can understand the ground because we live on the earth. So you start with the ground and then you work your way up towards the HaAzinu, the heavens. You work your way up towards the heavens. And then like how that manna came down and people couldn't understand what the manna was because they used to some garlic and leeks and stuff that grows out of the ground. Just how our carnal nature, you can just understand these things on the earth, but when it comes to heavenly things, we can't comprehend that stuff. And just how, and we see in this verse how Israel starts at the ground level and then it builds its way up. And you can't get knocked off when you're getting built up.
And going back to what you were saying about the song when you asked earlier, as far as like what in that song, like if you're astray, what so that right there would be like that song reminding you of the struggle. It's kind of like your preparation of the things you want to be facing to kind of help guide you through making your decisions in regards to what you're up against. And to kind of like that would be like what is it when you're studying for a test? That would be like your study guide, that song, and to help you not fall, or kind of like so you can see it coming when it comes, or even if you almost like, oh, okay, this is, let me revert back to if you're keeping that repetition of that song in there to let you know, that's your study guide.
You know what keeps my study guide? The fringes and the tissues. Because it tells us the number why they're there. It reminds us that we're under the law. It reminds us to keep the law.
Yeah, it's the same concept. It's something that's causing you to think about the Almighty.
Almighty, right.
So, that's kind of a general thing. The fringes cause you to think about the Almighty.
Right.
That song. Yeah. That song numbers 15 and 38 or something like that, I think. That song is now making it more specific, and it's giving you characteristics of the Almighty. It's showing you what he brought you through. It's showing you what will happen if you fall back out of it. Is like putting it all together there. But when we look at it, think about it as a whole, it is giving, it is connecting you with, it's keeping you thinking about the Almighty and what he has for you in your life.
Right.
Which is to be that upright one, is to be Yeshurun, is to be that one who's walking in the blessings of the Almighty and remembering how you got there.
Is that fringes only for boys?
No.
I've
seen women with them on their coat, their dresses.
He commands Israel, the sons of Israel, to do it. So you're not.
And I just had to take it a step further. I designed some with fringes on your sleeves, short sleeves. No, I talked to Derek's wife, and she was like, "Knowing you, only you would think of that." I said, "Well, hey, I got to stand out a little bit, but I still represent Papa."
Let's look at a couple of scriptures before we get done here. Let's see, what is this? What I got here? What is this? We in Isaiah. What's this say? I just lose my cursor here. $62. I can't remember what this was saying here. Oh, okay. Read 1 through 4.
For Tassan's sake, I am not silent, and for Jerusalem's sake, I do not rest, until her righteousness goes forth as brightness, and her deliverance as a lamp that burns. And the nations shall see your righteousness, and also run your esteem. And you shall be called by a new name, which the mouth of Yah designates. And you shall be a crown of comeliness in the hand of Yah, and a royal headdress in the hand of your Elohim. No longer are you called forsaken, and no longer is your land called deserted, but you shall be called Hipzibah, and your land married, for Yah shall delight in you, and your land be married.
Okay, so we see here, it says, where does it say that verse 2, the nation shall see your righteousness, and all sovereigns, all kings will see your esteem, and you shall be called by a new name which the mouth of Yahweh designates. Right, so when we think about a name is actually a actual name, right? An actual name, but there's characteristics and things that go along with the name. And when we look at this, we have to think about all of that, right? Not only will you be called something else, which the Most High's mouth will designate, but there's going to be something, a meaning behind that name. There's character, qualities incorporated in all of that, right? So when we think about that, it's not something that's kind of abstract, right? The character qualities that we will be walking in, that the nations will see, is Messiah in us, right? His attributes manifesting through us, right? And we think about this new name, right? When we think about like verses like this, and we look about verses in Revelations where we talk about this new name that nobody knows, we can't necessarily say that it will be Yeshurun, because we know that name, right? We know what Yeshurun is. It's not a name that we don't know, but we can say, I think we are able to say that name will be something like unto Yeshurun, where it's describing the place that we are and the way that we conduct ourselves as a result of the rock that's on the inside of us. So if we were going to kind of bring some type of resolution to all of this, when we think about this whole, I'm trying to get this. Okay, if we was to think about, bringing all of this together, we think about, again, the Song of Moses and the whole point of teaching it to our children, and learning it as even being Israel and learning this thing. The whole point of that in the first place is, of course, us being able to focus our attention on Elohim, for us to be connected to the things that he is doing, his character, and the ways that he would have for us to live our lives. We live in this time, after the Ruach has been poured out, and we have access to the Spirit of the Almighty. He's not so far off that that we aren't able to for him to come and dwell and live on the inside of us. We don't have to be like ancient Israel, who forgot about what the Most High done for them a month ago, yesterday, right? We're able to have his presence come and dwell inside of us and lead and guide and direct us on our steps as we go. So I'm saying that it's necessary for us, from a carnal perspective, to go back and to fill our hearts and our minds with that the attributes of the Almighty, just like we see that's what's done with the learning of the Song of Moses. But at the same time, know that we have the Spirit inside us, which strengthens those words that we feel that will physically read, and that will cause us to be able to walk in that continual forward direction. Okay, so that being said, anybody have any thoughts along those lines?
Those lines right there.
Yeah.
They're not actually on those lines because they so speak for itself. I did want to say something before you close. Let me know before you do that.
Well, we just want to want to leave off on that note. We want to leave off on a note in terms of looking at the Song of Moses from a spiritual perspective. We want to leave off on a note of thinking of the fact that of what it is that thing does from a physical perspective, and translating that to the spiritual in terms of allowing the Most High to be at the forefront of your mind, because that was the point of that whole thing. I'm learning this song and learning of his attributes and thinking of his ways. If I'm continually learning these things, it's going to keep me on the way, right? But now we have this additional thing, right, that adds to that. Not to say that we don't need those words. We definitely need those words. But now we're spiritually strengthened and brought to this other level where we're able to be empowered, and those words be have power in our lives.
Right.
Okay, so that being said, we want to end on that note.
I just want
hold on a second. We want to end on that note, and we'll be back next week, y'all willing, and with continuing on with the Torah portion.
But I want to say sincerely thank all listeners today, and those that showed up that may have been for the first time, and I